Imagine an FBI director stepping into Congress, raising his hand under oath, and then pleading the fifth as though he feared his own words could be used against him. That moment alone shattered precedent, because never before in American history had the head of the nation's most powerful law enforcement agency done something like this. It raised an unsettling question: if the one person entrusted to safeguard the law believed his testimony could expose him to criminal liability, what does that mean for the people who depend on him to uphold justice? And as the story unfolded, what began as silence turned into something worse: claims, contradictions, and what many now call outright lies.
Providing grand jury testimony. We've never had an FBI director come through this committee who had pled the fifth before. As you know, when you plead the fifth, to do it honestly, you have to have a good faith belief that your testimony would subject you to criminal liability, which meant if Patel was being honest, he had a good faith belief that his testimony would subject him to criminal liability. As that went forward, he ended up getting immunity from the government in order to testify. If this were a court, a civil court, a judge would allow an adverse inference to be drawn against the witness who had asserted the fifth. In Patel's proceedings, we were never even allowed to get to the bottom of the grand jury testimony. Why he pled the fifth, what he said, all of that was papered over as he went through this committee to confirmation. So for obvious reasons, I pursued that question, just as you would, Chairman, if the shoe were on the other foot. And I believe that Patel lied to us in the committee. He said that he couldn't share his grand jury testimony, and I'm quoting him here, because there's a court order on that case. He said, he said again, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC District Chief Judge. And then when I pressed him further, he challenged me saying, you want me to violate a court order? He then went on to say to Senator Booker that his grand jury testimony has been sealed by the Department of Justice, and I'm not allowed to discuss it here. Well, as it turns out, none of that was true. All of that was false. And we know that because the DC District Chief Judge, who he mentioned in his false statement to this committee, said, and I'm quoting the judge, July 2025, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee, unquote. So it sure looks like he lied about that. So in his recent testimony, I asked him again. And now he offered the committee a new and different lie, which is that he had released the transcript already. He said, first of all, I'd love my grand jury testimony to be released. I want it made public. And then he said, I wanted the transcript released, and I will get it to you, sir, to me. I wanted the transcript released, and I will get you the transcript. He said to me, we can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript. He said the transcript has been released publicly. He told Senator Booker, well, I don't have the grand jury transcript. That's why I released it. So, as it turns out, no transcript was released. He was making up that lie, probably to get away from having to answer our questions. But now we have an FBI director who first lied in committee about a non-existent court order and had that lie exploded by the actual judge who he claimed had him under court order, and then lied in committee about having released a transcript that we all know has not been released. I think on that state of facts, we're entitled to get the transcript that he says he wants us to have, that he says he released publicly, and that the judge has confirmed is not under any court order of protection. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with you. I know you have a strong interest in FBI chiefs testifying honestly in this committee and not lying to Congress, to try to get to the bottom of what is going on, because those seem like two pretty flagrant and obviously provable lies. And we'll follow up for further assistance to get to the bottom of this. But I don't think it's asking too much to ask the committee's support, to ask Director Patel to do what he says he has already done, which is to release the grand jury transcript of his testimony and provide it to us. Thank you.
The truth is, pleading the Fifth isn't something done lightly. By law, you only invoke it if you genuinely believe answering could incriminate you. So when this FBI chief did it, it meant he knew there was real risk, and yet instead of being disqualified from further power, he received immunity, a protection deal that allowed him to speak without fear of prosecution. With that immunity, he was cleared to testify. But even then, as senators pressed for the truth, what they got wasn't transparency, it was deflection. During his confirmation hearings, he told lawmakers he couldn't reveal the details of his grand jury testimony because, according to him, there was a court order forbidding it. He even snapped back at one senator, asking if they really wanted him to break the law and violate that order. It was a dramatic moment, designed to make him look like the one respecting legal boundaries. But here's the twist: there was no such order. The very judge he cited later made that clear, saying flat out that nothing prevented him from sharing his testimony. In other words, the so-called restriction didn't exist. Think about what that means. A nominee for the top law enforcement job in the country stood in front of the Senate, claimed he was gagged by a court order, and it turned out to be false. Not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication, false. The judge confirmed that under federal rules, witnesses like him are free to share their testimony. That revelation ripped a hole in the story he had carefully constructed. But instead of correcting himself or coming clean, he doubled down with something new. In his more recent testimony, when asked again about the matter, he switched tactics. This time he claimed that the transcript of his grand jury testimony had already been released. He even said he wanted it public, that he had made it available. He promised one senator he'd personally deliver it, as if to prove his transparency. But here's the problem: no such transcript exists. It has never been released. Nothing was made public, which means he wasn't clarifying his earlier deception, he was creating a brand new one. So now lawmakers aren't just dealing with one questionable statement, they're looking at two distinct contradictory lies told under oath. First, the non-existent court order, then the phantom transcript. And if this is what happens in the open, in full view of the Senate and the American people, what happens when the cameras are off? If the head of the FBI can mislead Congress, shrugging off accountability with fabricated stories, how secure is the truth for ordinary Americans who depend on the system to protect their rights? The senator leading the questioning didn't let it slide. He laid it out step by step, exposing the inconsistency in plain language. He quoted the judge directly, who had said that witnesses were free to divulge their own testimony. He pointed out that the so-called transcript was nowhere to be found, despite the director's assurances. And he called it what it was: two obvious lies, both delivered in the very forum where truth is supposed to be non-negotiable. What makes this moment so important isn't just the lies themselves, it's the broader pattern they reveal. Because when people in high office treat truth as flexible, when they bend it to suit their needs, it corrodes the foundation of democracy. Oversight stops working. Accountability collapses. The very immune system of government, designed to fight off corruption, starts to fail. And that's exactly what this senator was pointing out. He wasn't making a partisan argument. He was issuing a warning: if the Senate can't get honesty from the FBI's leader, then where can honesty be demanded at all? To fully understand the stakes, you have to see the bigger picture. This wasn't the first time someone in power tried to shield themselves with half-truths or legal smokescreens. There's a recurring pattern where loyalty to an inner circle takes precedence over loyalty to the law. It's the same cycle: deny, deflect, distract, repeat. And in each round, the cost isn't just political theater, it's public trust. People watching from across the country see officials dodge accountability and wonder if the system even works for them anymore. And the danger here is bigger than one man or one moment. If Congress can be lied to without consequence, then the line between oversight and obstruction disappears. The Senate isn't just another debating chamber, it's one of the few places with the constitutional authority to hold powerful officials to account. When that power is undermined by dishonesty, the ripple effect reaches every corner of public life. It tells the public that truth is optional, that even in the highest chambers of government, facts can be twisted without consequence. That's why this exchange matters, because it's not just about what was said in that hearing room, it's about the integrity of the justice system itself. If the FBI's director can plead the Fifth, get immunity, then spin tales about court orders and phantom transcripts, what message does that send to the agents under his command? To prosecutors who depend on leadership's honesty, to citizens whose cases rest on the integrity of investigations, the standard for truth has to be highest at the top. When it falls there, it falls everywhere. Senator driving this point home made it clear, this isn't about harassment, it's about oversight. And oversight isn't optional, it's the safeguard built into democracy to keep power from rotting unchecked. Without it, lies become normalized, deceit becomes strategy, and the public pays the price. That's why he described it as a direct attack on democracy's immune system, because when lies are tolerated at the top, corruption spreads like a disease. The chilling part is how casually the lies were delivered. No hesitation, no second guessing, just confident statements designed to shut down questions. First, I can't speak because of a court order. Then when that excuse collapsed, the transcript has already been released. Both untrue, both bold, and both delivered in the very setting where lying is supposed to be the most dangerous, under oath. So what happens next? The senator made it clear he intends to keep pushing. He wants the actual transcript, the real record of what was said under immunity. He wants it released so the public can see the truth for themselves, and he's calling on his colleagues to back him, because this isn't just his fight, it's about whether Congress as a whole can still demand accountability. For the American people, the issue is clear. If those with the highest authority to enforce the law can mislead with impunity, then justice itself becomes selective. And once that line is crossed, it's hard to draw it back. That's why this moment matters more than political rivalry or partisan battles. It's about whether honesty still has a place in government. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This story isn't just about one director or one senator. It's about a cycle that repeats when power goes unchecked. People rise through the ranks not because they tell the truth, but because they're willing to twist it. They gain positions of authority, not by respecting the law, but by bending it. And as long as that cycle continues, accountability erodes one step at a time. But this exchange also offers something else, a wake-up call. It shows that oversight, though often dismissed as political theater, is one of the last defenses democracies has. It proves that when senators press, when they dig past the smokescreens, the cracks in the lies start to show. And that's a reminder for everyone watching: transparency doesn't come automatically. It comes when people demand it, loudly, consistently, and without apology. So as this battle continues, the question isn't just whether this one transcript will ever see the light of day. The question is whether the truth itself will remain a standard in public life. Because if truth no longer matters, if even sworn testimony can be twisted without consequence, then the system isn't just failing, it's collapsing. And no democracy can survive that for long. That's why this moment should stay in the public's mind, not as another headline to scroll past, but as a turning point. Because if an FBI director can mislead Congress today and face no consequences, tomorrow it could be any official, on any issue, answering to no one. And once that precedent is set, there's no going back. This is why you should care, why you should stay engaged, and why you should keep demanding answers. Because the truth doesn't belong to the powerful, or the politicians, or the agencies. It belongs to the people. And right now the people are being denied it. If you believe that accountability still matters, that truth is still worth fighting for, then don't let this story fade into the noise. Stay tuned, stay alert, and stay vocal. And if you want to keep following the facts, if you want the noise cut away and the lies challenged, then make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Because only together can we demand the truth, and only together can we defend it.